What's up guys, llamapen here, and today I am back with my final Four Nations Faceoff custom NHL build. As you guys know, since the start of the Four Nations Faceoff tournament, I've been building one forward and one D-man from each team. Our last build is going to be a defenseman from Team USA. Last week I told you I chose these players before the tournament started. Kyle Connor, who I built last week, was something of a flop for Team USA, but I did not miss with this defenseman. It is tournament points leader and Columbus Blue Jackets defender, Zach Werenski. It's hard to say that this tournament and this season in general have been a coming out party for Zach Werenski. He's been a great player since the second he came into the league. The Michigan native has really been the one constant for the last decade on the Blue Jackets, who've had a pretty chaotic existence over that time frame. There's a real argument that Werenski should win the Norris, and in my opinion, he should at least be considered for MVP. A lot of the reason Werenski doesn't get talked about as much as other defensemen of his caliber is because he plays in a small market in Columbus, so I'll be honest, I don't get to watch a lot of Blue Jackets games. I did watch a really good video though from my favorite hockey podcast, the Hockey PDO cast with Dmitry Filipovich. And about a month ago, he released a film club video talking about his game with actual gameplay footage accompanying the conversation. He also released a 15-minute long video of just his best plays from this season, which includes good plays that didn't necessarily result in a goal, as well as defensive plays and footage of Werenski without the puck. So if you like that type of stuff, I definitely recommend the Hockey PDO cast podcast and their YouTube channel. But anyway, what I gathered from these videos is a few things. For one, Werenski is a lot better without the puck than I realized. He's super disruptive with his poke check, even with just one hand on his stick. He's kind of in between being a normal-sized guy and a big guy. At 6'2", 211 pounds, he's got a little more reach and a little more size, but he's not so big that he can't skate. He's not really a super fast skater, but he makes quick defensive plays and he's able to drive the play. His stretch passing is excellent, and he's also great with his touch passes. His shooting is generally really good, but I especially appreciated just his ability to get pucks on net through traffic when it's trickiest for the goalie, as this seems to be how he gets a lot of his goals. He also just has a great feel for the game and where the puck is going to be next, and it's not uncommon at all to see him step up into the high slot to get a better scoring chance. So in World of llamapen, I went with the two-way defenseman build. With Werenski's well-rounded game and frame, this makes the most sense. I chose Stick 'em Up as the gold ability to portray that great stick work I talked about. I then went with Seeing Eye as the first silver trait to hopefully ensure those shots from the point get through traffic more often. Then I went with Send It as the second silver trait to help with those long breakout passes. Lastly, for the boosts, I went with Agile Deking to get the deking up to a respectable 84 and Controlled Wrister to get the wrist shot accuracy up to 86. Looking at it, this build is about as well-rounded as it gets. The only attributes that even dip below 80 are the fighting skill and face-offs, and that's what's great about the two-way D build. The skating attributes are good, but not as good as they could be. I don't think you can truly justify them being much higher in a Werenski build, but that's the only thing I could really see holding this build back in any meaningful way. So let's start with what I like about this build. The poke check is elite. If you can keep a good gap, there's a strong chance that your first poke check will get the job done. When you throw in that high discipline rating, you can confidently go for poke checks. And in those borderline trip situations where you just feel like you have to go for it, it's unlikely you're going to commit a penalty. He also eats up shots with that relatively big body and 85 shot blocking rating. That 85 durability means he can usually stay in the play after making those block shots. I also really like the passing with that Send It trait. In those situations where you only have enough time to just tap that pass button to try and hit a guy up ice, Send It will give you those monster auto saucer passes that definitely bailed me out a couple times. On top of that, unless your opponents are positioned really well, those passes are probably going to get through. The skating and shooting wound up just being okay. You're not super fast. I know in the game they gave Werenski that wheels trait, but in my opinion, raw speed is just not a part of Werenski's game. I was actually surprised though. I thought he'd be a little slower than this with his height and weight and skating traits not being crazy high. And I will admit he's a little slow stopping and starting and getting up to that top speed with the 85 acceleration. But overall, he can definitely hang and keep guys close. And if you can do that, you'll be able to take advantage of that with that big poke check. His shot is not really a great threat to score with, which is a little unfortunate. I mean, Werenski is a great goal scorer. I think he has close to 20 goals this year. The slapper is pretty average, but the wrist shot is solid, and I love that seeing eye trait. It just helps you get those shots through traffic consistently, and that's where you're likely to get those rebounds, the screened goals, and the deflections. I do have to say I was a little disappointed in a couple defensive aspects of the build. Despite having 87 defensive awareness, it seems like you don't get bailed out by it as much as you would expect. Sure, most of these clips here I'm not perfectly positioned, but I feel like I'm positioned well enough to expect some sort of disruption, especially when you've got an 87 defensive awareness rating. That being said, it could just be that guys have a really high passing rating or a tape-to-tape trait or something that just trumps that 87, and that could make sense too. The body checking at 80 is not high, but with his 211-pound frame, I thought he would at least have some bully to his game, but he really doesn't. Even little guys were bouncing off of me, and I was really taken aback by how little impact a lot of his body checks had. Stick to that poke check, the stick lift, or the stick tie with this build, otherwise you'll have to call for backup. This is fine, I guess, since I don't really consider big body checking to be much of a part of Werenski's game anyway. Overall though, this build is really solid. Like I said, it's got its flaws. The skating could be better, and there are definitely builds out there that can take over a game much more easily than this one. There aren't really any big weaknesses to it though, and I think all the abilities are really practical, so stick them up, you use constantly. Seeing eye, it makes it easy to play that simple game from the blue line, just get pucks on net and get tips. Send it is something that you're using on pretty much every breakout if you're passing, so you're using all these traits pretty regularly throughout the game, which isn't always the case with every build. So anyway guys, that completes my Four Nations Faceoff custom NHL build series. I'll admit this took a lot longer than I expected, but it was kind of nice to have a little project. Maybe I'll consider some trade deadline builds if you guys are interested in something like that, but let me know your thoughts down in the comments. What did you guys think of this build? What was your favorite build of the series? And who would you guys like to see me build in the future? Just remember, I've got a playlist of dozens of other players that I've built over the years, so be sure to check those videos out. I hope you guys like this video, and I'll see you in the next one.